want to talk a little more, Dave, about the Boston Carolina series, and you and I talked, offline about the big news, and that was after Game 2, Carolina beat Boston.
Right.
And if you watched the post-game conference and you heard some of the comments that Tuuka Rask kind of came out and said, it left, particularly if you're a Bruins fan, probably left a pretty bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah, well, they had to scramble, and not really scramble, but in a situation like that, you really risk, because you're not giving as many reps to the guy behind him. Putting a guy in who might be a little not as sharp, if you will.
Yeah, but even more than that, Dave, what I was thinking about Tuuka Rask was he seemed, don't want to say he seemed disinterested, but you heard some of those comments, and it was that he basically said, I think the phrase was, "It does not feel like playoff hockey out there," is what he actually said. And
yeah, it feels forced.
But then you ask some of the other Boston players, and they kind of were saying, "Oh, these are playoff games. These are playoff games. They count. They mean something. We're not here for no good reason. We're here. We're trying to win a Stanley Cup, even though the circumstances are not, business as normal." And so I believe that game was. I want to say that game was on Thursday, and by Saturday morning, we heard that Tuuka Rask was actually opting out of the bubble, to spend time with family.
Right.
I don't know. There's been varying reports about what that means. Whether it means for the rest of the series, if it means for the rest of the postseason. I think that the feeling is that since he's out of the bubble now, there was quarantine going on. That if he were to somehow come back, he would have to quarantine for I believe 14 days. So you get the impression that if that's that. You get the impression that he's not coming back. That Boston is basically reliant on their backup, Halleck right now for the rest of the postseason. And it was interesting, but Boston did win that Game 3 against Carolina. So clearly, how it's Halleck, right? That's his name, the backup goalie for Boston.
Yeah, Halleck. Yeah.
Halleck. Yeah. So clearly, Halleck is capable of carrying this team forward. Does he have the sharpness that Tuuka Rask has? That's going to probably be the question. I think they can probably get by Carolina. I think I predicted Boston in 7 in this series. That they'll scrape by Carolina, because even though Boston was coming into the series not quite with that sharpness from the qualifying round, that expects them to kind of return to their own form a little bit and carry it forward. I do expect, based on that Game 3 performance, that Boston should still get by Carolina. But then the question comes, Dave, when they get to the second and third round, if they, as they move on in this tournament, how far do we expect Boston to go with Halleck as opposed to Rask?
Okay. I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't even know if there's a clear-cut answer to that, simply because it's subjective to the fact. I don't know. I honestly can't answer that.
Yeah, and so I mean,
I don't know.
Time will tell. I mean,
well, of course.
We'll just have to see how the rest of this. First of all, to see if Boston can get out of this series alive without Tuuka Rask. But then, but maybe to take a step back from the analysis of it a little bit. Depending on who you ask, and like I said, Dave, we have a lot of Bruins fans. We have a lot of friends that are Bruins fans, and I kind of heard some of their reactions. Not to quote anybody by name, but you go on the threads, and some people say, "Well, we support Rask because it's a family comes first," and he's right. I'm not going to argue that family does come first. But then there are some people saying, "Well, what Rask kind of did was a little selfish in the sense that it is a team game. The team depends on you."
Well, I think sorry to cut you off. I think the issue in here lies truly with the timing, not the opting out.
Yeah.
Which is again what I think a lot of the players and everyone involved, they're not necessarily upset with why he's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Pure and simple, my opinion is based on what I've been reading and seeing, and if I was the teammate too as well, because it's a team game, I wouldn't necessarily have potentially loved the way he went about it.
Yeah.
not that he's doing it. Because like you said, family is first, just a game, just sports, sure. But there's also so much more that goes into the just a game thing. Like at the pro level especially, it's a business. These guys make paychecks to provide for said family.
Exactly, Dave.
So that's where it gets tricky as well. But again, I don't blame him for wanting to be with his family. I just can only question the timing.
No, Dave, you're exactly right.
That's all.
It's the timing thing. You know, if you go, if you know, back in like May and June, Tuuka says, you know, I'm not doing this. I need to be with family.
Sure.
No
issue. None.
You know, and again, I don't want to get into the whole, you know, right to work thing or anything.
No, of course.
You know, because you know, Dave, if we were in some situations for our jobs, you know, where, you know, we didn't want to come to work because, like, let's say our job took us, you know, to Pennsylvania or something. We had to be away from our family and friends for 2 months, something like that. You know, what would be the emotions going through you? Oh, well, you know, family's important, so I'm going to tell my job no. And the job could say, well, if you don't do it, we're going to not pay you.
Or fire you.
And so that's what's interesting about this too, is that when this happened, when basically Tuuka came out and said the things he did, and the news came out that he was taking a leave, clearly he had the approval from management on the Bruins, because they came out and said we support, you know, Tuuka's decision, you know, and it didn't say anything about him retiring, or there had been reports going back from last year that said Tuuka may be near the end of his career, maybe considering some sort of retirement. But basically the story was that management did sign off on this, which kind of takes away from the controversy a little bit.
They did.
It's more just, it's again, but to me, the pure objection, as you said, A, the timing of it, and B, this is supposed to be meaningful games. This is a postseason. This is not some summer tournament. This is not preseason. This is what you play for. You're in the professional leagues.
Right.
You're getting to this moment, and at the biggest stage, even as, you know, pardon my language, screwed up as it is, you know, you owe it to your fans to be there and give your very best. But as you said, you know, I think people at the end of the day will have very different perspectives on this. I think when it first came out, I was more just kind of like, you know, oh, this is bad. As we heard more about the support from management and, you know, some feeling from around the league, you know, maybe it's not as bad as it sounds. If you put things in perspective, you know, it's...
But again, ultimately it's his decision. He needs to live with what comes with it.
Yeah.
You know, again, throughout this entire time, I've never necessarily blamed him for deciding to do it. My only question was, and in fact, I'm repeating myself here, questioning the timing. That's all. Not the ultimate decision. And if I was a Bruins fan, I wouldn't even hold a grudge against this dude. I get why you'd be upset in the moment.
Yeah.
But once you sit back and kind of dissect it more, it makes sense. And he has A, the right to do it, and 2, again, if he's ready to own what could come from it, whether it be retirement or not getting as much in a contract going forward because now they might have moved on, he needs to live with that.
Okay.
And I think he's ready. I'd like to believe he's ready to lay in that bed.
Okay.
If he's ready to make that decision.
And I don't want to come off as saying that I disagree with Tuuka. I just want to kind of bring some transparency to the issue.
Yeah,
say,
absolutely.
you know, it was a little shocking. It's gonna, to me, I think no matter how you slice it, whether you support it or don't support it, it's gonna impact Boston moving forward in the Stanley Cup.
I think so, man. I think so.
I'm just gonna put out there. I mean, going back to a few weeks ago, we mentioned that, you know, I thought Boston was the favorite before COVID in terms of the team win the cup. I kind of pulled back on that a little bit, watched them in the qualifiers. And then I said, well, you know, if they can turn it on against Carolina, then I'll rethink that. To me, this brings me back to the whole. This takes me back from contender to, you know, second round, maybe third round. I just don't see this team as much talent, as much depth as they have without a guy. I mean, and Howe, like I said, Howe played well. I'm sure he's a good goaltender. I'm sure he will. But when you get to those deeper rounds, the playoffs, every save, every goal, every moment matters. I don't know if Boston can get over that hump without Rask in net. that's kind of where my take is on that.